Welcome inside this edition of Big Ten Today, fueled by Gatorade. I'm your host, Rick Pizzo. Jam-packed 60 minutes coming your way. We debut our Big Life series. Paul Caponigri is here, the Big Ten rolling on the ice with 3 teams ranked among the nation's top 8. And of course, you know we will talk some buckets. And to do that, welcome in Trent Meacham, who joins us from Champaign this morning. Trent, pair of conference matchups on the Tuesday night schedule. Once again, we saw the level of talent in this league not disappointing in any way, shape, or form.
Well, I tell you what, Rick, last night it was on full display. I don't know if we've had the level of talent, skill, the versatility of players that we see this year in the Big Ten. Last night, some great action. So we're just getting started on what's going to be a fabulous Big Ten season.
Our big story takes us just minutes from Shea Meacham to Assembly Hall in Champaign, where the Illini knocked off Wisconsin 86-80. State Farm Center. Sorry, I'm a little bit old school here, ladies and gentlemen. Kasparas, Yakachonis, terrific once again. Wisconsin, which had won 8 straight in November, has now dropped 3 consecutive in December. They now fall to 8-3, and this was a win that Brad Underwood and company desperately needed after losing its conference opener in heartbreaking fashion to Northwestern in Evanston a few days ago. Trent, let's start with Yakachonis. Here's a young man that is showing us he can do a little bit of everything. He shoots, he facilitates, he is a mismatch nightmare. Right now, opposing teams really don't have anything to do when it comes to guarding Kasparas.
KJ, as they call him, Yakachonis, is a poor man's Luka Doncic. At 6'6", point guard position, can see over the defense, terrific vision. And now that he's scoring 4 straight games of 20-plus points, that opens it up for his teammates. He's making tough step-back threes. He made a number of those against Northwestern and Evanston, again last night against Wisconsin. He's doing it all for this Illini ball club. But I would also add the trio of guards, Kasparas, Yakachonis, Kylan Boswell, Trey White. Those guys, those 3, went for 66 points, 18 rebounds, 12 assists. Those guards won it for Illinois last night.
No question. Trey White, 23, and Kylan Boswell, who transferred in from Arizona, and I think the concept was he was going to be more of a facilitator. He showed on Tuesday night, Trent, that he can score the basketball when this team needs him to. If they have 3 legitimate scorers, and we're not even talking about Tommy Avicic right now, this is a team that no one is going to want to play throughout the course of the season, especially if they have to go to Champaign.
Yes, the backcourt really got it done last night for Illinois. Starting with Trey White, he was more aggressive than I've seen him. Getting to the basket, getting to the free throw line, put a lot of pressure on Wisconsin. And here's the hard thing. When you play against Illinois, who's guarding someone like that? You probably have your top perimeter defender on Yakachonis. Kylan Boswell, his offense is emerging. He's been, I'd say, two-way tough. He's been really good on the defensive side of the ball, has not shot the ball that well this season, made a couple threes last night, but he's also now improved his game, getting to the basket, finishing, making plays for others. And then you have a guy like Trey White. We've seen Will Riley do it sometimes. So this Illinois team is really, they're loaded. They have a lot of depth. But in that backcourt, when those 3 guys are going, and I just thought Trey White for 40 minutes, he had a couple shots early. In the second half, he was getting to the basket, just put so much pressure on Wisconsin. Then going to Kylan Boswell, the Champaign kid, he's one of the better 2-way players we have in our conference. I thought the job he did on John Tonje, who's scoring over 20 points a game. Tonje only had 14 points last night, did not shoot it well, had 4 turnovers. Kylan Boswell, his physicality, he's got quick hands. There was a possession there in the second half where he cut off Tonje, who was cutting to the ball. And because of his strength, he got knocked back into Klesman, who just flew, and it was a foul in Wisconsin, even though the Wisconsin player was on the floor. So Kylan Boswell, his maturity, he's a junior. He's played in big games for Arizona. He's a real key because when he's aggressive, too, alongside Trey White, that allows Yakachonis to have a little bit of a breather at times, to pick his spots. In today's game of basketball, you need multiple playmakers. And last night, Illinois had 3 of them. Wisconsin's perimeter, that's been averaging about 50 points a game, they only scored 37 points. and did not rebound, did not distribute the ball. So those guards for Illinois dominated that game. They were the three best players on the court last night.
No question. Wisconsin now dropping 3 in a row. Need a little bit more from Steven Crowell, especially rebounding. Was basically shut out on the glass last night. And John Blackwell had such a fantastic freshman season. You have to hope he avoids a sophomore slump because Wisconsin needs him to be a legitimate scorer. Meanwhile, Rutgers, you want to talk legitimate scorers? They have 2 in Dylan Harper and Ace Bailey. How about the freshmen combining for 39 points and 27 rebounds? Built a pretty big lead over a red-hot Penn State team. Nittany Lions made it close late, but Rutgers survived, once again proving Jersey Mike's Arena is worth at least 4 or 5 points. Huge win for Steve Pikiell's team as they even up their conference mark at 1-1. Penn State falls to 1-1 in early Big Ten play. Trent, these freshmen came in as hyped as any freshman that we've seen in the Big Ten as a pair in a long time. And so far, I think they're living up to all those expectations.
Best duo of freshmen that I can remember. I've said this before. Mike Conley and Greg Oden were pretty good at Ohio State to play against those guys. Man, these guys at Rutgers are so good. I love the 27 rebounds more than the points. I think that they have the ability. They're scoring the ball, especially Dylan Harper. But if those guys are active on the glass, if they're playing with great energy, Ace Bailey at 6'10", if he's doing that, man, it makes the game easier for him. It makes the game easier for his teammates. And those guys, I mean, you're going up against Ace Baldwin. Dylan Harper just dominated that matchup, 24 points. I thought the only thing Rutgers didn't do great was take care of the ball. And that's always going to be a hard thing against Penn State, the 14 turnovers. But Dylan Harper only had 2 of those. As your freshman point guard, they did dominate Penn State on the glass, points in the paint. They got to the free throw line 13 more times than them. So that attacking mindset, going to the basket, and give Rutgers credit. They shot the ball great in the first half. They were 8 for 18 from 3. Second half, only 0 for 4 from 3. So I think they adjusted what's working well, continued attacking the basket. I would like to see a little bit better balance, but man, those freshmen, they are so good. It's not just potential. They're producing right now early in their freshman campaigns, and that's exciting to watch.
Trent, I'd love to hear more about the need for balance because you're simply not going to get 39 and 27 from those guys every night in Big Ten play. So who else does Steve Pikiell need to become a consistent third scorer alongside Harper and Bailey?
I don't think, Rick, there's one clear guy. Maybe it's Josh Durkak. He can do a number of things. He's a guy that can create his own offense. Jeremiah Williams as well. Those 2 guys have experience. Durkak was a big scorer at Merrimack. So I think those would be your next 2 options. Lathan Somerville on the interior, only a freshman. He's probably not going to play much more than 20 minutes a night, but man, he can get it done. He reminds me of a young Trevion Williams. Great feel for the game, got skill, can step out and make threes. He had 4 assists last night. So those would be your next 3 guys. You also have guys like Acuff, PJ Hayes, some plug and play guys can knock down threes. This Rutgers team is so different. And that's what makes this fun. They're so different from what we've seen from previous Steve Pikiell teams. They have better shooting. They have more star power. And, Rick, I'm going to go back to these freshmen. I think Dylan Harper in particular, I think he's the best freshman in America. I know this freshman class is crazy loaded this year. He's so polished. His game is mature. He's never rushed. And to do what he did against Penn State was beyond impressive. He started the game making 3 threes. But for the rest of the night, it was getting to the basket, getting to the free throw line, distributing for his teammates, getting to the boards. So impressive as a young guy. And they have some good pieces, as I mentioned, to fill in along the side. So this Rutgers team, we're only going to see them get better. And that's what's going to be scary for opponents this season.
I do want to touch on Penn State before we leave this game. This doesn't, for me at least, to lose a game like this on the road, change my opinion of Penn State as one of those squads that I think was maybe as underrated as any team in the Big Ten in the preseason.
For sure. And I thought the second half, they went small. So they didn't play their bigs, I believe, just 7 minutes in that second half. They went small. You saw Puff Johnson at the 5. They spread the floor. They created some havoc. They outscored Rutgers by 9 points. So I thought they played very well. And look, this is despite Ace Baldwin having a subpar game, only 8 points, 3 for 14 from the field. So he didn't play as well. They're still within striking distance on the road. This is a very good ball club. Going to create havoc. I love Ace Baldwin at the point. They got multiple shooters that can spread the floor. They can play different ways. Niederhauser is still a young player, that's only going to get better, but he has all the tools to be a dominant big. And so I think each week we're going to see him progress and learn how to produce in Big Ten games.
And so each of those teams will take 1-1 records into the restart of Big Ten play in a couple of weeks. Michigan had already started 2-0 in the Big Ten. Wolverines went non-conference on Tuesday night in a fantastic watch against Arkansas. Looked like Michigan had this one wrapped up. Wolverines were up by 15, but got outscored 44-38 in the second half. Arkansas then came back to build a big lead. Michigan threatened, but the Razorbacks hold on 89-87, just the second loss of the season for Dusty May and company as Michigan falls to 0-2. Much like Penn State, that was a conference game on the road. This is a non-conference neutral site game. But I think, Trent, we saw if Michigan has to go fast, if they have to get into a scoring fest with an opponent, they can play that way. And we've already seen early in this year, if they have to get into a defensive slugfest, they can win those kind of games too.
They're a fun team to watch. They share the ball well. The biggest issue for them was the 17 turnovers last night. That allowed Arkansas to get out in transition, to play faster. But when they got scores and they're able to establish their defense, they're good on that end of the floor. Offensively, what they do and what Danny Wolf in particular allows them to do, 14 points, 9 rebounds, 9 assists as a 7-foot point center. I love the 4-5 ball screen with him and Vlad Golding. It's so difficult to defend, especially when they open up one side and it's a naked ball screen. I mean, Wolf is so impressive how he handles the ball, how he uses his body, his footwork. He can pass with either hand. So this is a really fun team to watch. You saw Will Cheddar come in the first half, knocking down threes. They got some experience. Again, another team that's only going to get better. They're playing good basketball now, but Wolf is one of the most difficult matchups in the Big Ten. You combine him with Golden, Area 51 as they call it. Those two 7-footers are a load to handle, and you don't see it too much now, but those 7-footers are playing so well together, and I just love to see Danny Wolf's progression, even in the course of this early season.
Dusty May told us he was going to play Wolf and Golden together when we chatted with him at Media Days. I wondered how it would work. It's obviously worked out very well. And so the question becomes, as they get back into conference play, how do other Big Ten teams try to offset that? Because basically no one has the size. I know Wolf plays on the outside, but they are still 2 7-footers. One other non-conference game, Trent, to mention from last night is Washington takes care of business against Eastern Washington. It's been a little bit of an inconsistent start for Danny Sprinkle and the Huskies. What's your take so far? Where do they have to get better when they get ready for the restart of Big Ten play?
Well, they have little margin for error. So I think taking care of the ball is such a big thing for them. If they can take care of the ball and shoot the ball well, okay, that's a great start offensively. They have some talented pieces. Actually, great Asabor has proven himself in college basketball, does a lot of things. He's a unique player. I think Zoom Diallo, they could give him the ball even more. Uber talented freshman. He can really go. He's got great burst. He can distribute it as well. We've seen Tyler Harris improve. Makai Mason had a great game last night. 23 points, was very efficient. So offensively, they got to take care of the ball. But then defensively, can they defend? They have the athletes. They have some size to defend. And that's how you are consistent in college basketball. Can you defend and rebounding? That's where they have to hang their hat. And then offensively, play good basketball with each other. They shot the ball great last night. And if they can continue that, they just have little margin for error. But this team will get better. All new players, new coach, new league. But they got some exciting pieces to work with for sure.
Also have to be able to limit the minutes for Asabor because we've seen him in some of their competitive games this year getting tired in the second half. They need him on the floor in those critical moments. All right, plenty more with Trent still to come. If consistency is, in fact, key, Kirk Ferentz can unlock pretty much any door on the planet. Iowa heads to its December 30th Music City Bowl matchup with Missouri, coming off a 9th consecutive 8-win season. Hawks have momentum both on the field and in the world of recruiting. And don't forget one very important storyline. A bowl dub would tie Coach Ferentz with Woody Hayes for the all-time win record among Big Ten head coaches. And the big interview takes us to Iowa City as we welcome in head coach Kirk Ferentz. Kirk, first and foremost, congrats on getting another 8 wins, going back to a bowl game, and we appreciate the time. I know this is an insanely busy time of the year for coaches.
It's interesting to say the least. I've done this for a while, and every year is a little bit different. This is certainly unprecedented. Us not being on the road to start with that. In some ways, it's kind of nice. The signing took place last week. So at least our stuff's a little bit more segmented now, just trying to get the team ready, playing a bowl game, and then obviously seeing if we can supplement our team with maybe some roster improvement.
Kirk, before we get to that bowl game, I want to go back to the end of the regular season because I thought that win over Nebraska was kind of a microcosm of your season. Maybe didn't play an ideal game. You were shorthanded from a roster standpoint, but at the end of the day, you found a way to win. What has defined this season so far for you and the staff?
Yeah, there's some similarities to last year and this year. I think we've had challenges at the quarterback position start there. Things have not gone according to script, so that's been interesting. But yeah, I think the bottom line, the big takeaway is our guys find a way to get things done. And one great thing about football, I think, maybe more so than any other sport, there's a lot of ways to be successful. It's not always a game of statistics. Certainly our last game was a very good example of that. We got outstatted in every regard. But we came up with some big plays when it really counted. We got a strip sack at the end. Drew made a beautiful field goal, did a great job with that. And Caleb Johnson's touchdown was one of the better plays I've seen in 20-some years. So, just those kinds of efforts individually and then, collectively the guys hanging in there and giving us a chance to be there at the end.
In addition to beating Nebraska, you had trophy game wins over Minnesota, over Wisconsin. After a quarter century of coaching in those kind of rivalry games, how special is it still these days to look over and watch the guys celebrating with Floyd, celebrating with the Heartland Trophy?
Yeah, I mean, that's why we do this. It's all about the players. And, the single best part of my job is being on the field with those guys in meeting rooms around the building. That's what you really enjoy. And then obviously our coaching staff, support staff, it's all about the people you're with every day. And that hasn't changed as much as college football has changed. And we're really in a period right now of flux or transition, to say the least. But, all those things are variables that just keep it interesting for sure. But the thing that hasn't changed is just, watching players maybe enjoy the fruits of their labor and seeing them do things that maybe they didn't think were possible months ago.
And one of those rewards, a trip to the postseason. You have the Music City Bowl against Missouri on December 30th. Tigers are 9-3. Only 3 losses came against ranked SEC opposition on the road. What can you tell us from what you've seen so far in scouting Missouri?
Yeah, they've, coincidentally, we were supposed to play them in 2020, and then the game got COVIDed out. But we were supposed to be in Nashville at that point. So we started to, pay closer attention to them back then. And they've done nothing but be very successful since that time. They've had 5 really good years, I believe it is now, under Coach Drinkwitz, and a really good program, good team. We actually watched their bowl game last year, getting ready for our Ohio State game this year, and saw a team that was really well coached and a lot of talent. A lot of those guys are back again. So, it'll be a big challenge for us, no question about that. But it's just nice to have a month together with the team, another month, and one more chance to compete. So we look forward to that. And going to Nashville is always a good deal.
Kirk, you mentioned that outstanding touchdown by Caleb Johnson to help you win the Nebraska game. Caleb announced he won't be playing in the bowl game, getting ready for the NFL draft. How, if at all, does that affect your offensive approach heading into the Music City Bowl?
Well, we that was our strength of our team, was the running game this past year. And again, I talked about the challenges we've had at quarterback, but can't say enough about what Caleb has done. And he's been a great young man ever since he joined our program 3 years ago. But he really did a stellar job this year. And it's again, one of the cool things about coaching. You see a guy mature, see his approach change a little bit. He was just so well focused this year on everything he was doing, practice, on the field, off the field. And I think that experience, that maturity really paid dividends for him. He's always been talented, but this year he learned how to play, really use those talents to his advantage. But he's the same guy every day in practice or at game time. Just, a guy you can count on, and just really, again, happy for him. He had great success. We're going to have to spread that around now in the bowl game because Caleb won't be with us, but got a good young group of guys there, and they'll do fine. So, our approach will probably be the same, but, it won't be one guy maybe carrying such a heavy load.
Kirk, as we sit here today, and we both know how much can change in the next 3 weeks of insanity here in college football, what do you envision at the quarterback position in terms of starter, rotation, guys who would be available on December the 30th?
Yeah, I mean, basically we have 2 guys right now, which is one more than we had a week ago. So that's a positive. at least, healthy. Brandon Sullivan's healthy now, and then Jackson Stratton jumped in and really did a nice job, for a guy that was on the scout team 5 weeks ago. Really did well. So really proud of him and what he did. Those two guys are getting a lot of work this month, which is really a benefit for them. And they'll be the ones that are playing in the game. And we'll see how that all goes. But try to put a plan together that's hopefully effective, and then we'll see what the new year brings.
Kirk, how difficult is it right now to get ready for a bowl game, scout the opponent, set up your 15 extra practices that you get when you're just coming off National Signing Day? You're now in the portal transfer window, which is open. And in some cases, you don't know which guys are going to be available, going to even be on your roster by the time you get to bowl season. How difficult is this time in terms of preparation for the next game up?
This may sound crazy, but I think it's easier, quite frankly. And I go back to, I remember in 2004, getting on the plane to go down to Orlando. We played LSU, and whatever day it was about 8-9 days out front of the game. And I think I'd seen maybe this much film of LSU. So I went down there and just kind of went in the bunker for a while to get caught up. And the day we flew out, the team flew out, I'd gotten back about 2 a.m. from a recruiting trip in Connecticut, actually. So, I actually feel like, maybe it's a little bit more sane right now. We're grounded for the first time. We can't go out and recruit in December, which is typically the case. So we're actually in our office. Imagine this. We're in our offices actually talking to the guys on our team. It's been kind of refreshing. We got a chance last week to sit down with everybody individually and just, see where they're at and how they're doing, that type of thing, which was great. Now we're starting to practice a little bit on top of it. And, we're going to be involved in the portal to some degree. I can't tell you how much, but hopefully we'll never be, building our team through the portal. So I think it's a reasonable workload that way. And then, the craziness of the portal, that's a different story. But we'll see how it all pans out. And, but at the end of the day, things have a way of working out, I think, if you just, take your time.
So you got to talk to some of your current players last week. You also got to sign a new class. When you finished with National Signing Day last Wednesday, how did you and your staff feel about the guys that are coming into Iowa City?
Really good, Rick. I mean, I'm really pleased with the group, and that's changed too, as you all know. It's almost anticlimactic now in the winter time to make announcements because, for the most part, our guys were committed probably by mid-July. The guys that we have, and it's kind of the way it works here. They come here and they like it or they don't like it, and it usually works. There's usually not a lot of drama, which is okay with me. And, the guys we get, I think, are meant to be here. And so, just really happy about the class overall. It's not a big class, 15 guys joining. A lot of similarities to the years past where these guys are multi-sport athletes, typically team captains, those types of things. And hopefully they'll be great fits if they're given positions with our football team. So anxious to have them come. We'll have, a handful, 7 guys show up in January, and then the rest of them will be here in June. So that'll hit time in place. But just, really happy about the class. And most importantly, I think it's a good fit both ways. And that's what you're looking for.
All right, Kirk, let's finish here. I know you'd rather be part of the playoff instead of talking with me about it, but from the viewpoint of someone who's seen so many changes in college football, this is one of the most recent. What do you think about how we got to where we are and if anything else needs to be changed moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, really what I think isn't going to matter. I don't think in terms of changing, but my guess is we'll expand it even more in the near future. I'll go back to when we went to 4, from 2 to 4. I don't think that helped our game, me personally, the game of college football. I would have preferred to stay at 2. There's always going to be somebody mad about, the outcome we're not number 2 instead of 3, or, why are we 5, not 4? We've seen those arguments. But, if we were not going to go stay at 2, then I'm all for expansion. I think that's good. And if we want to keep going, I'm okay with that too. I am a traditionalist. I liked the bowl system the way it was. And, it's not the end of the day, maybe if you can't make the top 2 list. But anyway, so there's a lot of good things in college football, and I think this has been positive. I was kind of amused, about the argument about, who's 12, 13, 14 last week. But, you're always going to have those discussions. But I think if we're going to go down that road, you might as well open it up, let everybody go. And, we'll just see how it goes. But I think everybody's dealing with it fine, and it's probably good for college football.
Always great to catch up with Kirk Ferentz. Kirk, wishing you and the family happy holidays. Look forward to watching you guys in the Music City Bowl at the end of the month.
Appreciate it, Rick. Happy holidays to everybody. Thank you.
25 from the Big Ten, led by Purdue and Oregon at 11 and 12, respectively. Michigan went from outside the rankings to number 14 this week. That's before Tuesday night's loss to Arkansas. Same with Wisconsin, 20 before Tuesday night's loss to Illinois. Michigan State in the poll for the first time this season. UCLA returns for the first time since the preseason poll. Trent, let's focus first on Michigan State. Tom Izzo and company have 3 very winnable non-conference games. Of course, the annual showdown with Oakland and Detroit, and then 2 more in East Lansing to get themselves ready, playing very well right now as they look ahead to the restart of Big Ten play.
I like this Michigan State team. Despite being one of the worst three-point shooting teams in the country, under 30%, I think that will improve. They're better at rebounding. They're playing faster than they have in recent years. For our sophomore point guard, Jeremy Fears Jr., almost 6 assists in 22 minutes a game. I think he's pushing the ball like traditional Spartan point guards. And I think that shooting will improve. I think there's a number of guys, whether it's Carr or Fiddler, Jace Richardson's playing well, Booker. These guys are only going to get better. So they're really good defensively now. They're rebounding the ball better. That allows them to get out and play that classic brand of Tom Izzo basketball. So I am bullish on this team. They're coming off 3 good wins against UNC, Minnesota, and just destroying Nebraska. They're playing well. The shooting's going to get better. Jace Richardson, freshman, one of the guys that is shooting the ball very well, over 60% from the field. He is another freshman big-time player, but this is a balanced, very good ball club.
How about Purdue in the non-con? The Boilers have left after already playing Alabama, Marquette, Ole Miss. Up next this weekend, they get number 17 Texas A&M. That's in Indianapolis. They also play currently second-ranked Auburn before Christmas in Birmingham. Matt Painter's going to know everything about his team before the new year arrives.
Man, it just never lets up, and then you get into Big Ten play. Taking care of the ball will be so important. You know, so at times this year, Braden Smith's kind of been the one guy that really handles the pressure. He needs someone to step up and relieve him of those duties. But what I will say about Purdue, you can't say this about most teams, is the role clarity. It's so clear. Trey Carpenter has taken that step, almost 20 points a game. He's playing great. He's efficient. Fletcher Loyer, I'm tired of people saying what he can't do. Well, he can score the ball. He's averaging almost 14 points a game, shooting it really well, over 50% from the 3. That backcourt with Braden Smith coming off a 24-10 performance against Maryland, handling their pressure, coming back in the second half. I thought that was a big win for Purdue. If they can get one of these games, I think they feel pretty good about it. But this team, you know, the roles are so clear. And as a point guard, a leader, man, Braden Smith has such a swagger and confidence, and the whole team galvanizes behind him. This is another good ball club, and these games are going to be fun to watch here.
Oregon at number 12 has 3 non-con games left, but right now Dana Altman and company trying to rebound after that heartbreaking loss, the last-second bank shot from UCLA. What's your take on the 9-1 Ducks?
Well, they have great balance. They have great experience. They're very well coached. And I've said this before, you got a guy like Jackson Shelstead. I don't think he's maybe made the step that some may have thought. I think he's got better basketball ahead of him. And the fact that they're playing so well with what might be their best player not playing up to his potential, I think that speaks very well to them. But this is a deep team, a balanced team. Nate Biddle on the inside, he can do a number of different things. You got guys like Bamba and Bartholomew. I mean, versatile players that have experience. They're going to be tough. And I know it's going to get tougher as they come to the Midwest and East Coast, but I would expect to see Oregon at the top of the standings here. They got a couple more non-conference games, including Stanford coming up. But Dana Altman, this is going to be one of the top 4 or 5 teams in this league.
Yeah, I think Stanford could be a tricky non-con game right before the holidays. The Cardinals are 8-2. It's one of those semi-neutral site games in San Jose, kind of a be careful game for Oregon. As for the final ranked team, UCLA, they were on the winning side of that bank shot against Oregon. But you look at what they have left in the non-conference. And I'm not sure what Mick Cronin is doing to himself, Trent, but he has Arizona, Carolina, and Gonzaga all still to come before the Bruins step back into Big Ten play.
Well, what they do have going for them is they have great depth and they really defend. They get after you for 94 feet. They'll change up defenses. They're a top 5 defensive team, according to Ken Pom here this early in the season. The depth, though, it's great, but I wonder, will Coach Cronin continue to play 10 guys 10-plus minutes. I think for especially the guards to get into flow, get into rhythm, I would expect that rotation to dwindle just a little bit. But, man, they have a lot of guys that can go. I love Bilodeau, Daly on the interior. They can stretch the floor. Daly hit 3 threes against USC in a big win. Kobe Johnson knocked down some threes. Those guys, if they're doing that, that really opens up the game for all those guards. And so now it's just which guards will emerge and finding a rhythm and flow for UCLA. And these games will help Mick Cronin figure that out here.
Yeah, since that loss to New Mexico, Bruins have ripped off 7 straight wins, including their first 2 inside the Big Ten. Great stuff, as always, from Trent Meacham. Trent, we appreciate the time. Have a good one.
Thanks.
Welcome to the College Football Hall of Fame, Mark D'Antonio. We knew about this news for a while, but it has now become official as the Michigan State legend is part of the College Football Hall. Did such an amazing job in East Lansing, really changed the narrative about what Michigan State could be. Of course, increased in intensity, that rivalry with Michigan. Our congrats to Coach D. Time now for your Gatorade game leaders as you look at the 4 Big Ten hockey teams ranked in the USCHO top 15. The Buckeyes are a big surprise at number 15. Those other 3 teams, known commodities, though you see Minnesota has overtaken the number 1 spot this week. Michigan State was there last week. And the biggest reason why Minnesota is number 1, as we welcome in hockey analyst Paul Caponigri, is what the Gophers did this past weekend against Michigan. That was at the time a 4 versus 6 matchup. Not only did the Gophers sweep, they outscored the Wolverines 8-0 over the weekend.
Yeah, they didn't give up a goal. And I think the one thing when you looked at Minnesota coming into this year was, where's the goaltending going to be? They brought in the transfer, Liam Soulier, who didn't have a good senior year at Penn State. It's why he became available. And he's been fantastic with Nathan Arey in net. And I think that question has been answered. And you look at Minnesota, I don't know if they have a weakness right now. They're just fantastic.
Well, Snuggerud's back, which is something we didn't expect to say maybe this year or maybe last year as well. So you know they're going to score. Yep. As for Michigan State, they split over the weekend against Wisconsin. Give the Badgers credit for that Friday night win. And they almost swept the Spartans. Michigan State needed the OT goal on Saturday.
Yeah, I think the Badgers are finally coming to where everyone expected them to be. They were had a rough start of the season. A lot of changes there, and I think they're starting to look like the team they expected. But Michigan State answered. It's kind of their first their first tough road series of the season. They answered back Saturday night. They got down 2-0 in that game Saturday. You're looking at maybe possibly getting swept. They answered, they tied it, and then went in overtime.
Yeah, I love the way they played, too. They were out shooting Wisconsin throughout the entire game, never got frustrated, stayed with Adam Nightingale's system, got the tire, went to overtime, and got the game winner. So that was this past weekend. As for this coming weekend, on Friday, a great hockey doubleheader begins. It's Michigan and Wisconsin. Then the top 2 in the Big Ten and 2 of the top 3 in the country. It's Minnesota and Michigan State. Puck drops at 6 Eastern for that first game, only on the Big Ten Network and the Fox Sports app. Let's focus a little bit on the matchup that precedes the matchup that everybody wants to see. It's a little bit of an appetizer, to the main course, but this is a terrific game as well. And I think after what Wisconsin did last weekend, you know that Michigan is going to be well aware of what the Badgers are capable of.
They are, and then how is Michigan going to react to what just happened to them? Not only losing and not scoring a goal in a weekend, but they also have a suspension. Eric Warner hit Jimmy Snuggerud late. They also had a couple other guys. Tyler Duke got thrown out of the game, so they lost their, they weren't scoring, they're frustrated, they lost their composure, and so it's, how do you answer that back, right? And you have a team coming in confident now. The Badgers, Tommy Scarfoni, another question mark that maybe Wisconsin was having, is playing his best hockey in net for them. So it's going to be interesting. Can Wisconsin keep the momentum going, and can Michigan get home and have that home cooking and get back on the right side?
Has this been what you've expected from the Wolverines this year?
A little bit. I mean, you look at the roster; they're not as skilled. They have just
they were ludicrously skilled the last couple of years.
5 years, right? So it's a little bit different. They did lose Michael Hage. Their one big top first-round talent did not play last weekend. They're winning differently. They're not scoring 5-7 goals. They're winning more with defense. They're Jacob Truscott came back for his 5th year. They've been better defensively. Their goaltending has been okay. They got a little bit, Minnesota does it to a lot of teams. I mean, it's just the way it is. But they're winning more as a team, not relying on the skill guys up front because they just don't have those guns this year.
When you watch this Minnesota team play as we transition to the second game of the night, you are just blown away by the skill, the speed, their ability on the rush to make tape-to-tape passes. I mean, they have a little bit of everything. I think it could be as much between the ears dealing with the pressure of hearing again and again. It has been so long since you won the Natty. You've had so many chances. Is this the year?
Yeah, I mean, I've watched the top teams. You got Michigan State, Denver, Boston
BC.
College, and Minnesota. For my money right now, and it's we're talking very small fractions, but Minnesota is the best team in the country. I've kind of said that the last couple of years, but we talked about 2 years ago when Brock Faber and Lacombe and those guys, Ryan Johnson. Bob Motzko calls this defensive group, which had half of those guys were part of it. Now they're older guys, Chesley, Middlestat, is maybe the best defensive 6 he's had at Minnesota.
That's a huge statement.
Right. And then you got Snuggerud decides to come back, which I think Brock Faber had a little bit to do with that, saying, hey, I played 3 years and look what I did jumping right back in. So they just have all the components. Like I said at the start, it's the goaltending, and the goaltending's been fantastic. Liam Slear's stats are great. Nathan Airy has been fantastic, a little bit of a question mark there. So when I look at them, it is definitely something where it's going to be a mental thing. Because everything right now, yes, they want to be good, but it's all,
It's all about April, early April, and the Frozen Four. As for Michigan State, it's hard to believe Adam Nightingale's really just getting started. It seems like he's been there forever because the second that he got there, Michigan State got good. Trey Augustine now has a ton of experience in goal, one of the nation's best. We saw that a year ago. I know they split this past weekend series. They're not number one anymore, but no one would be surprised if Michigan State makes a run to the Frozen.
No, I mean, that's where they are. I mean, they were the number one team last week. They're really deep. They don't have maybe like the high-end skill talent, but they can score on all 4 lines. Their D is pretty deep. They have some injuries right now, and they have 5 really solid guys, and then nobody has the guy in the back. Like it's like quarterback in football. Goalie in hockey is probably one of the top most important positions in a sport. And Trey Augustine he's a sophomore. He's 19. But he, just like with Adam Abel,
he plays like a 10-year NHL vet.
Exactly. And I think that's what makes his demeanor so great in net, and then his skills in net. Guys talk about how hard it is to score on him. But he's got the temperament. He's that goalie that,
Nothing bothers him.
Nothing bothers him, and that's the mentality. Those are the great ones have that.
And when you really need that?
That's what separates Michigan State.
You really need that when you go on the road. Into a hostile environment where the crowd will be there when the team's number one in the country.
He's seen that.
And that's the case this weekend because Michigan State will play at Mariucci. What a fantastic series for the Gophers and the Spartans. For Cappy, Trent Meacham, and thanks to Coach Kirk Ferentz as well, I'm Rick Pizzo. That's Big Ten Today.